Hi everyone, this is Eric from Dumb Game Dev, and today we're going to be looking at some Playmaker essentials. And what this means is we're going to look at some of the very core concepts of Playmaker, and this is really for people who are brand new to Playmaker, or maybe don't understand some of these essential concepts, but if you're brand spanking new, this can probably help you out. We're going to talk about actions, states, and events, especially local events. We'll talk about global events in another lecture. Now, Playmaker is primarily made up of these three different things, we could call them, and I'm just going to use general language to explain them. I'm not going to use any technical jargon or any of the official explanations of what they are. But we're going to go over them one by one and take a look at some examples, which will sort of help you understand, sort of have like an aha moment. But let's talk about it first. So actions are probably the most core concept, I think. And actions are something that makes change in Unity or your game. So actions are, a light on or a light off, or maybe something bigger or something smaller. Essentially, we want to affect some type of change in our game. If we can't have any change and everything's static, we might as well be looking at a picture. So it's that change that we're looking to make happen with Playmaker. Now the state is when our changes are being made. So the states control time. So, we don't want the light on and off at the same time, as that obviously couldn't exist. So we need to have one state where the light would be on and one state where the light would be off. So states are the control of time of when things happen. Now, events are tightly linked in with states, and what events do is control the order of states. Do we go from state A to B to C, or we do go from A to C to B? Because we can do that with Playmaker. We don't have to go in a linear fashion. It's not a timeline where things can't be changed. In fact, we want varying states to happen in varying orders in order for us to have a dynamic game. Otherwise, we were pretty much just sitting in front of a movie. So that's why we need events. So to boil that down even farther, actions are what happens in our game, states are when they happen, and events are in which order do these things happen. So let's take a look at actually in Playmaker and in Unity, and then see how that goes. And So here we are in Unity, and this is what things look like when you first open up a new scene. And I have not done anything except for install Playmaker into this. So once you do have Playmaker installed, you're going to have this new tab at the top, and you're just going to choose the Playmaker editor. It's going to open up a new window, and I'm just going to grab it and dock it down here at the bottom so I can see it easier. And then we'll just get started from there. So I'm going to add a cube to this scene. A cube is sort of the hello world of Unity tutorials, I think. So we'll just add it into the scene and add a 3D object and say cube. We'll just look around here, and I'm going to place this in front of the camera, or maybe I'll just move the camera down to the cube so that we can see this easier. Okay. That's about right. Now, we want to do something to this cube. We want some kind of action. So we talked about actions as being sort of the first key component of Playmaker. And otherwise, we just have cube, and this is our game. That's no fun. So we want the action to happen on the cube. So I'm going to just start by adding my FSM. And the FSM is the Playmaker editor. We'll call it that for now. It's a type of Playmaker script, let's say. So it says right-click to add FSM. So I'm going to right-click and choose Add FSM. And it's going to have a start. This is where the FSM starts. And it's going to go to state 1. Now, we talked about states, as states being where something, when something happens. The states are when it happens. So this state is going to happen at the start. It will start and flow into state 1. So we can call this state whatever we want. We can give it any name we want. We could call this bananas or we could call it the start. And I'm just going to call mine, say, the start. It really doesn't matter. This is just to help you out to know what the state does, okay? So it's completely arbitrary, so don't worry about that. Now the next thing we want to do is put some kind of an action into this state. So we know when it's going to happen at the start, but now we need to tell it what we want it to do, what's going to happen. And to do that, we need to add a action. And if you go all the way down here to the bottom, there's something that says Action Browser. We'll click there. It's going to open up a new window. I'm just going to grab this and just dock it up here so I can see it easier. So in the Action Browser, we have all these kinds of built-in actions. And I'm just going to choose a simple action here that we can use. I've got some recent actions, so I'm going to use set scale. You can browse them or type them in if you know what they are. And double click on it, and it's going to add it to this first state. So if I click off the state, you can see it's gone. If we click on the state, it reappears. So in this first state, we want to set the scale of what game object, and it's currently set to use owner. So because this FSM, you can see this little orange thing here, is on the cube, that means the FSM's owner is this cube. Okay, if I had it on the directional light or the main camera, the owner would be the directional light or the main camera. We'll just zoom in here. So the object we want to change is the owner, which is the cube, and we're going to change the X, Y, and Z value. So let's just say something random, 3, 2, and say 0.1. Okay. Now for this action to occur, we have to play the game. So I'm going to push play. It'll take a second, and it has occurred right at the beginning, the start. So if we check the scene view, we can see we now have this ridiculous shape. So if we turn off the game, you can see it's gone back. We turn it back on, the action occurs right away, and again we have the ridiculous. So that's great in the sense that we can change the scale or size of this cube, but that doesn't necessarily make us a game. Maybe we need it to change over time, like from one size to another size to another size. So as we talked about, states define when something happens, right? We can't have all the same sizes at all the same time, so we need them to be at different times, different sizes, right? So maybe the start state, we're going to call it like size 1. Then we want another state, and we're going to call it size 2. Okay, so in size 2, we're also going to set scale, and we're going to set to something different. Maybe it's going to be, something ridiculous. We could have like 10.1.1, right? So now we've got two states, 1 and 2. We're going to push play and see what happens. And as you can see, it goes to state 1. And if we look down here at our FSM viewer, we can see it went start, and it's highlighted in green over size 1 because that's where we are. But it didn't go to size 2. There's nothing connecting the two of them. It needs to know how to get to the next state here. Now, as we already learned, what connects the states together is events. We need some event to tell us the order of the states. So we need to add an event to this state to make it go. Now if we right click on it, we can choose Add Transition. And this transition is an event. These are all events. And it has one built in called Finished. Okay, Finished is essentially a dummy event. It's just an event that's pre-made with a name that doesn't mean anything. So we can choose Finished. And then we can drag it over to the next size, size 2, and let's hit play. And now it's gone from size 1 to size 2, and we can look, here it is. But it happened so quickly, we didn't actually even see it. It just was like, bam, bam. Right? It's just one frame or less in between these two states. So let's see what we can do to slow this down a little bit. Let's add another state. So we have size 1, size 2, and if we right click, we can add a state. Let's call this state waiting. So again, the names of the states are arbitrary. I'm just making them up to help myself know what's going on. So I want this finished state. Just drag this over to go to waiting. And then I want waiting to go over to state 2. So on waiting, we can actually use an action called wait. And maybe we want it to wait 2 seconds. And then we want to add a transition called finished. We want it to go from finished to the next state. And as you can see, waiting has an extra little thing here, say finished event. So when this is finished, do what? So when it's finished, we want it to go to the finished event. Okay, so some actions have finished events and some don't. Some will just complete automatically. So it's again, it's a little bit arbitrary as to which states have finished events and which ones don't. So sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Don't worry about it too much. Okay, so now it should go size 1, and when that's finished, go to waiting for 2 seconds, then that's finished, then go to size 2. Let's play. Awesome. So let's watch this one more time. So we're in state 1, and then it goes to state 2 real quick, waits 2 seconds, and then goes to the third state called size 2. Now, we could actually even shorten this down a little further. We could move waiting over to state 1. We don't even need this middle state, so let's delete it. Because one state can actually take more than one action. We can have more than one action happen essentially at the same time. So we'll add wait down here at the bottom. Let's add a few more seconds, say 4 seconds. And then when it's done, it's going to go to finished, the finished event. We'll drag that over to the second state. Now actions don't happen exactly at the same time, but they do happen in order here along the, we can call it a sort of a timeline. So set scale will happen first, then wait, and if we had another one, it would happen after, and so on and so forth. So the order you do have can matter sometimes. So let's play this. So we're on the first state, and we're in the wait. We're going to wait 4 seconds, and then change to the next state called size 2. Now we can even add another state here, just called finished again. And we'll add another wait. And say we'll add another 4 seconds. Change the finished event and go back. So now we can have 2 events talking to each other. So let's just play this. Oh, sorry, 2 states. So it'll wait 4 seconds, go to this state. It'll wait 4 seconds here and go back. Wait 4 seconds and go back. So we can have them looping. So maybe you wanted to have, say, for example, a light that turns off and on, or some street lights, and you wanted to wait a certain amount of time between each street light change. 30 seconds for green, 5 seconds for red, and then back and forth. So it doesn't have to be 1, 2 states. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4. You could have them in whatever order you wanted. Now, I think actions are fairly clear to most people when they use Playmaker. Actions are something that happens, and we have a long list of of potential actions of different things that we could do. We can animate things, we can use audio, change the camera, colors, all these kinds of things. That makes sense. Sometimes states are a little bit tricky to understand why you need more than one state, but especially when you think of something like on and off, or a color like green or blue, then state sort of make more sense because you can't have the two things at the same time. But it's better to think of states of not necessarily as 1 and 2, but like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or other possibilities, right? So it's not just open and close, on and off, but you could have 3 sizes of this block happening. Or maybe we want to change the color of the block, but we only want it to change, after the wait, right? So if we added a color change, let's see here, color, which color do we want? So I guess we use set material color. So if we wanted to set the material color, say, to red, and we're going to use the owner. But what if we only wanted it to happen, after this 4 seconds, and we'd use the next state to do that. So right now, if I do it here, it's going to happen on the second state. Right? So states really help us to have some like fine-grained control of when things happen, which is really important. Now, the final question that usually comes up is events. Events are sort of the hardest thing to understand, I think, for a lot of people. They think, here's where I got stuck. If there is only one event, then why do we need events? Why not just have finish on every event and then we just drag 2 states together? What's the point of having more than one event? Okay, so there's a few reasons for that. The first is the final state may not have any event. So if it's not going anywhere after this last state, don't add an event. Okay, if you want something to end where it is, there's no need for an event. We could just call this state the end, right? If we do add an event to it, like finish, it's going to give us a warning that it's not going anywhere. Events need to go somewhere. So if we just click on finish and then click delete, oops, that wasn't good. Let's try right-clicking and delete transition. There we go. So they're using the words transition and event interchangeably here in Playmaker. Okay, so the other reason that you might need more than one event is that you might have more than one possibility on your state. Okay, so this state is just using one finished event, so it's always going linearly, like from like a timeline, like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But in a real game, that may not always be the case. You might need different possibilities. So if this happens, do this. If that happens, do that, right? And I think using keys is always a good way to sort of describe how this happens. So I'm going to delete all these states. Oh, we cannot delete start state. So let's just remove these actions. We'll even remove our transition. So we'll just call this again state 1. Now I'm going to make 2 different states. I'm going to make one state called option A. And we're going to have another one called option B. Now we want this to potentially, the first state, to go to option A or option B, depending on what happens in our game. So for that to happen, we need 2 possible events. So on the first state, I'm going to create 2 events. Now we can name these events whatever we want. It doesn't have to be finished. Again, this is completely arbitrary. You name these whatever you want. So I'm going to choose add a transition and custom event. And okay, so I thought you could add a custom event here directly, but I guess we can't, so that's fine. What we're going to do is need to go over to the Events tab here and choose Events. And we can see Finish is already pre-made for us, so we can add our own custom event. So I'm going to call mine, say, Go to A. And we'll make the other one called Go to B. So it's not very creative, but those are the names of my events. Again, arbitrary, whatever. So on state 1, now I'm going to click add transition, and I've got go to A and go to B. So I'm going to add go to A, add transition, and go to B. So now you see it has two events, two possible events. And it's giving me a warning because these events are not linked to anything. So I'm going to connect go to A as to option A, and go to B as to option B. So now if we look at the first state, we don't actually have any actions here. So how does it know where to go? Now, so this is where your game comes into play. Maybe different keys are going to do different things, or maybe you have integers that are going to, you want to count, do a float check or an int check or something like that. And as you watch more tutorials, you'll learn more about this. So what I'm going to do is just set it up with keys. I want two keys to go to different ways or do different things. Okay, so let's set up our states first. And so in option A, I want something to happen. Option B, I want something to happen. So I'm going to say set material color, and it's going to be, we'll just make it green. And for option B, we're going to set the material color, and let's just make it red. So I'm going to rename option A and just call it green, so I know what it is. And option B, and I'm just going to call this red. Okay. So we're going to use a key to select one of these two events. So in our actions browser, we're going to type the word key and see what our options are. So we have something called under input, we have get key. Well, we want the key down. You're going to learn this one a lot. If you're using a computer game, you're going to use get key down a lot. Now we have get key down. So which key do we want to use for our get key down? I'm going to use A for go to option A. And when I click A down, I want to send the event to go to A. So A key goes to A event. Now I'm going to get another key down, and I'm going to use, what's the other one, is option B. Okay, so let's set the next one to B key. And when that one click, we want to go to B. So now we have two potential events on this one state. So let's try it. Click play. Now I'm going to click A, and lo and behold, we went down to the A event, which is green. Now if I click A or B again, nothing happens because we are stuck on this state. There's no event to go back. It's a one-way street. But if we turn off our game, turn it back on, and now this time I'm going to push down the B key, and we go to the B event, you see we've gone to the red cube. Now, as you can imagine, we could have lots of keys do lots of different things. It doesn't have to be colors. A key could move you in a direction. It could change the size of something. It could start music. It could stop music. And this way we can use different keys to have different events. Now, what we would like to have happen though is after it turns green, we only need one event to go back. We'll just choose finished, and we'll go back to this initial state. And we'll do the same for red and add a transition, finish, and we'll go back to the initial state, right? So this way, maybe when we push A, it went down to the green state, and then it went back to the initial state to wait for another key. Push B, went down to the red state, and then went back to the initial state to wait for another key. So because we're not pushing any key at this exact moment, it's neither going to state A or B. It's just going to hang out there and wait for the key. Now, we could also use the wait action here. We're going to choose say wait, and we'll add that one at the end, and we'll say wait 4 seconds. We can add another event. Let's add the event saying I'm done. That's our next event. So we'll go back, and in wait, we'll have a finished event called I'm done. And when you do this, it's going to give you a little error pop up. It says event not used by this state or any global transition. Click to add transition to the state. So what it's telling us is if we look at the state itself, state 1 has A and B, but it doesn't have I'm done, even though it's being used on the state. So it knows it's being used, but it's not hasn't been set up. So it's telling us to either set it up ourselves, or if we just click in this error, it will set it up for us. So let's try that. We just click here in the error, and lo and behold, it sets it up for us. So we're still showing an error here because it doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going to add another state, and I'm going to call this state like you were too slow. And we'll drag I'm done over to here. And now, as you can guess, it's going to wait 4 seconds and then send us to the state. So if we push A, it will go here. If we push B, it will go here. But if we wait 4 seconds, you were too slow, and we've moved to the state where keys don't do anything at all. So again, actions is telling it what to do. Wait, change a color, go here, move something here or whatever. The states tell it when to happen. So one at a time. Now, the events tell us which order these things happen. As you can see, we have multiple possible orders for this to happen in. And without events, even if we have states, it wouldn't know where to go when. I mean, if we only wanted to use a straight timeline, no problem. We just need finished events all along the way. But most games don't work that way, so we do need multiple events. And the beauty of the events and the states is you can call them whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. And it's just to help you to remember them and what they do. So let's go back to our description that we looked at the very. And the Playmaker essentials are this. So actions, states, and events. So actions are something that makes a change in Unity. So it's something that changes our game because we want changes to happen. States are when our changes are being made, and so states control time, and events control the order of those states. So lastly, actions are what happen, states are when they happen, and events are in which order. So if you're new to Playmaker or whether you're not new to Playmaker, I hope this helped you out. And if you'd like to come and chat about this, jump over to our Slack channel. Slack is a way to chat online. So there's a bunch of us on there chatting almost daily. So if you just jump down, there's going to be a link here down in YouTube. Click on that, join our Slack channel, and it's partly socializing and it's partly talking about Playmaker. Okay, until next time, everyone.